A modern monologue for me. It's only just over 50 years old. Written for Peter Sellers at the end of about 1959, 1960. Peter Sellers put out two LPs. One was called The Best of Sellers, and the other was called Songs for Swinging Sellers. And I've no doubt some of you here who are of that era would have bought them, because everybody seemed to, although they seem to have forgotten about now. This is one of the monologues on Songs for Swinging Sellers. I think it's called Lord Badmintons Memoirs. Nowadays it is the custom to think of the aristocracy and leisured classes of Edwardian days has been entirely devoted to selfish pleasure and amusements. Now this simply was not the case, and in the next few moments I hope to be able to destroy this fallacy. As a very small boy, some of my earliest recollections have been taken by my father, in those days Chancellor of the Exchequer, on his occasional tours of the estate charters. In the course of these expeditions, it was his practice to visit those amongst his poorer tenants and employees who, by reason of old age, accident, or sheer carelessness, happened to be destitute and half starving. Dear faithful Elliot, the coachman, invariably accompanied us on these trips, carrying an enormous basket covered with a dazzling white cloth and containing bowls of dripping, cold stock, potato peelings, cabbage stalks, and other nutritious kitchen scraps. As well as these more material comforts, he also distributed tracts of an improving and uplifting nature, which he wrote himself and had printed at his own expense. I well remember the occasion when we visited the sickbed of an ancient, decrepit wagoner who had somehow or other managed to get himself badly trampled underfoot whilst attempting to stop a runaway horse and cart. And now, although the old fellow could barely move, he made a pathetic attempt to sit up in bed and tug at his forelock as we entered the wretched bedroom. My father, who I may have mentioned before, and was in those days First Lord of the Admiralty, began to tell the old man that under the circumstances such formalities were unnecessary. But too late. With a sickening thud, which I can hear to this very day, the grizzled pate came into sharp contact with an oak beam which hung down across the bed. With a low moan, the unhappy fellow sank back stunned onto his pillow. He never regained consciousness. Distressed as we were by this incident, my father and I offered a word of cheer to the wagoner's widow and pressed upon her a basket of rotten apples and a bundle of tracts before going on our philanthropic way. A most merciful release, observed my father after the wagoner's funeral. Why, that man might have gone on in a bedridden state for many years, a misery to himself and a burden to others. Providence, my son, works in many strange ways. As a footnote, I would like to add that there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that my father, in those days president of the Board of Trade, would have actually attended the funeral of his late employee had it not been for a sudden attack of gout which kept him indoors on the day. I hope, in relating this anecdote, that I have conveyed to you something of the wonderful kind of relationship which existed between the family at the Hall and the peasantry on the estate. A relationship which, alas, is nowhere to be found today. It is not all, I fear, which has changed for the best.